On Inside tonight, of educational institutions in the area due to the precarious nature of security there. The heads who are unsure of their safety due to recent escalation of violence in the area and the age-long conflict ravaged Upper East regional town say a temporary closure of the school will help save their lives. Now, a letter written to the Municipal Director of Education, the Conference of Heads of Basic Schools in the Bawku area noted that due to the insecurity and the subsequent ban on tricycles, popularly known as yellow in the area, they are appealing for the closing down of basic schools in the area pending improvement of security there. The once economically vibrant Upper East region town is gradually becoming a ghost town following renewed tension in the area, which has led to several killings in the area. The latest incident saw an unknown gunman shooting 3 people to death in one of the suburbs of Bawku. Though there has been efforts by government and civil society organizations in the area to resolve the conflict, they only help bring about temporal peace, but confrontations re-emerge after some time. The most recent meeting was in Tamale a week ago, where the feuding factions pledged to ensure lasting peace in the area, but that commitment ended in the northern region as the guns went blazing again, leading to the death of 3 persons. These developments, the Conference of Heads of Basic Schools believe, is not healthy for the pupils. Right, now let's go to over the phone and speak to some leaders of the 2 factions in Bawku with regard to this particular conflict, which has seen several interventions from the government side with regard to the police also moving in, curfew within some communities, and economical activities also halting. And we have on the line Dr. Issa Moro. Dr. Issa Moro is a leading member of the Mamprusis ethnic group in Bawku. Doc, good evening.
Your listeners,
we appreciate your time and thank you very much for agreeing to speak with us.
Thank you very much too. And first of all, I would like to commend your station for granting us this opportunity, because usually if there's a problem and then you don't hear from the sides that are involved in the issue, it becomes difficult for you to have an informed, understanding of the issue. And then also most of these, side, some of them might not know the concerns of the other side. But through public engagements like this, we get to know what the concerns from the other sides are, and it helps to build tolerance. So I think it's very important, and we thank you so much for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you very much to Dr. Issa Moro. Now, on that note, let me begin by asking, what is it, do you think, within the media landscape with regard to the story has been misplaced as far as the exact situation is concerned?
Yes, thank you very much once again. As you indicated earlier, the Bawku problem has been there for a very long time, and then government has tried a number of times to resolve it. And then, as you are aware, every conflict usually has a root cause and then the immediate causes. And then the root cause of the Bawku conflict is basically chieftaincy. And then there are other immediate causes that usually spark the conflict. And I believe strongly that what has been missing in the media landscape is that most people don't know what exactly the problem is. Sometimes you have media interviews that are being granted to one side, and then they come in and spew whatever they think is their position. And the other side is not granted the opportunity. So mostly people don't get an informed decision. But quickly, I would like to just give you a brief of what the problem is exactly. And it will help the listeners to understand that Bawku is doable. There can be peace in Bawku, but if we pay attention to what the problems are.
Doc,
in the first place, yes.
For the purpose of time, I would appreciate if you will be more articulate, and then we will stick to the time so that we can also get to engage the other side. So,
thank you very
kindly
much.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, Bawku, Mamprusis, and then Kusasis and all other ethnic groups had been living in Bawku peacefully for over hundreds of years. And that is why I say it is doable, there can be peace. Until in 1957, when there was political interference in the chieftaincy institution in Bawku. And then for over 250 years, the Mamprusis had been chiefs in Bawku for over 250 years. Okay, and then in 1957, when the 13th Bawku Naba, who was a Mamprusi, was enskined, our brothers, the Kusasis, decided to also enskin a paral chief. That was in 1957. And so when they did that, the Mamprusis didn't take up arms. The Mamprusis decided to file a case at the High Court to restrain the Kusasis because it was against the norm at that time. They filed a case at the High Court, and then our brothers, the Kusasis, did not even show up. And then, when they didn't show up, not knowing there was a political commission of inquiry which was supposed to be set up, but if they had allowed the legal process to continue, there would have been peace. But there was political interference quickly, and then a commission of inquiry was set up in 1958. Now, when that was set up, it found that the Kusasis had the right to enskin a chief in Bawku. That is what the commission of inquiry said in 1958. But the Mamprusis felt that no, we would contest it, and they went to High Court in 1958. And then High Court ruled that no, the Mamprusis were right. They should rather be the chiefs of Bawku. When the High Court passed the decision, there was political interference again. They exiled the 13th Bawku Naba, who was the chief by that time. So he was exiled to Togo in Timu. So when he went to Togo, then there was an appeal on the decision of the High Court. And unfortunately, he was not there to defend himself. So the appeal was sustained, and then the Kusasis were made chiefs again. Now, because it was a political issue, it was not only specific to Bawku, it was in over 500 areas in Ghana. You can cross-check that. So when the government was overthrown in 1966, the new government came and restored the status to the previous status quo. So the Mamprusis became chiefs again from 1966 until 1979, when the Kusasis again decided to enskin a paral chief again. Then the Mamprusis didn't take up arms again. They went to the High Court in Bolga and then filed a suit seeking to restrain the Kusasis. And then the High Court granted the application of the Mamprusis and perpetually restrained the Kusasis from acting as chiefs. That was in 1970. That was in 1980. The High Court granted the Mamprusis. Then in 1983, there was a conflict because basically what happened was that the Kusasis had decided to ransack the Bawku Traditional Council, which was situated or which was under the custody of the Mamprusis. At that time, Otumfo Pokuwari II, he was the president of the National House of Chiefs. So he decided to set up a committee of eminent chiefs to come and look into the Bawku matter. That was in 1983. And when they came, you need to look at their findings. They found that, look, after the tradition and then whatever the arrangements were in Bawku, the Mamprusis, through their overlord in the Nairi, he was the one who was supposed to be the kingmaker of Bawku. This is the findings of the Otun Force Committee in 1983. And they concluded that once there was a suit at the National House of Chiefs, because that is the only institution guaranteed by law to handle chieftaincy matters. So Otun Force Committee, which was a very wise decision, they said that let's wait until the National House of Chiefs rule on the Bawku matter. But they made the point that the place, the Nairi was supposed to be the kingmaker of the place. Fortunately, few months later, the National House of Chiefs granted their ruling, and it was in favor of the Mamprusis.
Right.
In 1983. I will just conclude briefly, please.
Great.
So when they granted the ruling in 1983 in favor of the Mamprusis, the Otun Force Committee said that government should implement the ruling. But unfortunately, there was political interference again, and then the PNDC government passed a law, PNDC Law 75, barring the Mamprusis. And then there was another committee again called the Mina Committee that was set up after the 1984 PNDC Law 75. That committee found that the PNDC Law 75 was actually the main problem of the Bawku crisis. So it should be repealed. But the government didn't heed to it until 1966 when the government repealed the PNDC Law 75, which guaranteed the Kusasis. So as we speak, PNDC Law 75 has been repealed. And in 2003, the Mamprusis, not knowing very well that PNDC Law 75 was repealed, they went to the Supreme Court, seeking to contest PNDC law 75.
Right, and
then,
of course,
let me just conclude on that.
Doc,
That's the conclusion part.
I appreciate that. I mean, the prehistorical antecedents you are given right down to 2003 when the Supreme Court finally gave a verdict and then expected the two feuding gates to settle the issue.
No, that is the point I want to make, because the Supreme Court did not give a verdict on who achieved this, because the Supreme Court does not have that original jurisdiction to say this person is a chief, that person is a chief.
Absolutely.
We spoke about PNDC law 7, and that is the point I wanted to make.
Okay.
Now, because what happened in Tamale. Okay.
Because Abugri is also on the line, so that we can also be fair to him with his response.
Yes. Now, just giving the historical antecedents was very important, so that you understand that before 1957, Mamprusis and Kusasis lived peacefully.
I appreciate that now. So if you can hold on for me, because you are making a very salient point where the 2003 Supreme Court ruling did not necessarily agree or give a verdict on the enskinment of the particular chief for the faction. But then hold on for me. Abugri also joins us. Abugri Haruna speaks for the Kusasi youth, and he joins me as well. He has been on the line for a while now, listening to the conversation. Now, Abugri, good evening. If you can hear me, what really is the difficulty in terms of resolving your differences between, because we have heard the history of the conflict from both sides? I mean, as Dr. Moro also gave, with each of you claiming a right to the town, but people keep dying from this feud. What really are we missing out? What is the issue here?
Thank you so much. I convey the greetings of the overlord of the Kusa Kingdom, Naba Abogra Azoka II, to all listeners and all Daniels. Once my very good brother, Dr. Imoro, has also started in the historical point, I will also beg to start something small. My brother, the
Abugri, if you can hear me, I would appreciate it if you equally limit the antecedent, the historical antecedents, so that we can properly address this issue, because the discourse is equally to help resolve the issue, so we don't polarize the conversation.
No, we are not going to polarize it. I am also going to set some records straight. You know, it is also going to serve as a learning point for Ghanaians to know what is happening.
Absolutely.
And I am just simply going to use some 2 minutes for the historical antecedent. What I was saying,
1 minute.
The Kusasis did not resist the Mamprusis having community chiefs in Bawku, because the Mamprusis never attempted to interfere in the land ownership, nor did they assert any form of authority over the Kusasi man. The advent of colonization with its policy of indirect rule is what has brought the Mamprusis in Bawku to the Bazar claim of the Bawku scheme. The colonial powers who had been using chiefs in the south and some parts of the north were quite surprised when the Kusasis were not organized around the tribal chiefs in the form that were seen in the Dagbang area, the Gunja land, and the Nairi areas. The Kusasis did not have a similar structure. The colonials therefore resorted to using the Mamprusis community chiefs in Bawku to aid them in their policy of indirect rule. With the support of the white colonialists, the Mamprusis chiefs started exerting authority on the Kusasis. The Kusasis started resisting. We could not agree to be ruled by Mamprusis in our own land. But nevertheless, the Mamprusis had the support of the colonial master, who used them to abuse and mistreat the poor Kusasi man. In 1932, under the influence of the colonial district commissioner, Mr. Gate's time, the chiefs from the both Tone and Agole in the Kusa Kingdom, we have the Tone area at the Bawku West and Agole area, were brought to Bawku and prevailed upon them to choose the Bawku Naba as the head chief of the Kusas area. This was the first time that all the chiefs in the Kusas area were brought under authority of the Bawku Naba. It is interesting to every observer in Ghanaian to know that how the Mamprusis man can be ahead of the Kusasis, who were dominating over 98% in their population. This was making the colonial masters and the historical indictment against the Kusasi people. You see, when we talk about the Ghana independence campaign, and that is where the struggle emboldened the Kusasis to also fight for their self-rule. Incidentally, the Mamprusis keep...
All right, so Abugri, can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
Great. So at this point in time, what really is triggering, if not inciting both parties to go at each other, and how do we resolve this? I'm sure you both are looking for an amicable, lasting solution to this particular protracted conflict.
All right, let me just then go there without giving you the proper history of it.
Briefly, I would appreciate that.
Yes, what I want to say simple is that the Mamprusis, my very good brothers, the Mamprusis, including Dr. Issa this evening, in Bawku are potentially being encouraged or motivated by the Nairi in Naleru to go up in arms till date. What are they seeking? What they are seeking now is that they want to be chiefs and rule over the Kusasis people in Bawku. That Bawku, which is the capital of the Kusasis, is part of the territory of the Nairi kingdom. That is their claim. And this is the apartheid we are speaking about. And this claim, with respect, is a relic of colonial atrocity. You see, if they don't understand the reality, that has been a problem. They have refused to abide or use any legal or lawful means to make their case. The Mamprusis do not respect the processes or the judicial decisions. Let me give you some basic facts. In 1957, the Committee of Inquiry, just like Mr. Isamoro has said, was set up by the Governor General Lord Lisowa to inquire into the claim of Abu Ghraib.
All right.
That he, please, let me get land. That he was rightly selected and in scheme. And the committee made their findings of.
Well, we seem to have lost Abugri Haruna. And Abugri Haruna was equally making a salient point that now, Dr. Moro. Dr. Moro, are you there?
Yes.
Thank you very much for the patience. Now, briefly, how do we, equally, I would also ask you the same question. How do we arrive at a lasting solution to this particular situation?
Yes. And then thank you very much. You see, I was very brief when I took you through the historical antecedents. So if my brother had specifics, that would have been fine. But one of the major problems that is responsible for the problem is the posture, my brother Abugri on the other side, is having, and it is having a huge impact on the situation in Bawku. And if you look at his presentation, you would realize that he's whipping sentiments and then using slogans like colonization, and then they're seeking their freedom. And most of these, when you test them, based on the evidence, you find that they are not factual. Because I wanted to paint a picture to you that before 1957, Mamprusis and Kusasis had been living peacefully even before the colonial authorities came. Mamprusis had been chiefs for over 170 years before the white man came to the northern territories in 1896. But you see, they are painting a picture that it was the white man that came and then gave Mamprusis chieftaincy. And so their people are fighting for independence. It is this primary slogan that is causing the problem in Bawku. Because if they don't stop these slogans, most of their people will play, we are fighting for independence. And they see the Mamprusis man as an enemy. Meanwhile, it has never been so. Mamprusis and Kusasis have been allies.
Right.
And because of time, we don't have time, I would have taken you through.
Definitely. In our subsequent broadcast, we'll be delving into this because
generally, he spoke about that Mamprusis don't follow the law and all that. And I told you that Mamprusis had gone to court. The first incident in 1957, Mamprusis didn't take up arms. They went to court. They went to the National House of Chiefs as a ruling in their favor. They went to the High Court. All these are legal processes. And then the recent spark in violence, let me just conclude by giving you a highlight of what happened. The defense minister invited both parties to Tamale for a meeting. That was on the 12th. And then the meeting was purposely to, talk to both parties to understand that we cannot use the gun to solve our problems.
So in this case, Doc, the militarization approach is not doing so much as expected than the mediation, the community mediation and negotiation or dialogue. I'm sorry.
I mentioned to you that a conflict has a root cause and immediate causes. So the militarization, what that one does is that it helps to control the immediate causes of the conflict. But it does not solve the root cause of the problem.
Absolutely.
And then, yes. So to address the root cause of the problem, I spoke to you about a 1983 committee ruling. That was during the reign of Opoku II. I would entreat all the media houses to take that committee's report, look at the recommendations, and then if government had followed through, wouldn't have had any problems.
Right. Thank you.
So I would want to conclude by saying that we need to preach peace. Look, talking about colonial, it never happened, honestly. If you look at the history, there has never been colonization. Dr.
Isamoro, we sincerely do appreciate the insight you've shared with us. I must admit that you have been very, very forthcoming with your response, and we're looking forward to having this discourse again in our subsequent news broadcast. But Abugri Haruna, if you're on the line, briefly, Dr. Issa Moro admonished that the language and the posturing from the other side perhaps is not really doing very much to address the current conflict ongoing. Briefly, how do you respond to that? Do you think that the language should be quite more distilled, not from you alone, but from also members within the Kusasis ethnic tribe or group? Sorry.
Of course, when we talk about provocations, I think there are also elements of war. Provocations can inflame persons and can increase the tensions of war. But when we talk even about inflame provocations, I think it is rather coming from Dr. Imora's side. We have on record a radio station called Human FM and Bawku FM.
Abugi is
and I also think that actually speaking, we also have social media.
Thank you, Abugi Haruna. Thank you very much. We're hoping that, but the issue here is that we try to measure, as part of this whole resolution we are looking at, by measuring our utterance and, of course, getting our concerns across so that we don't infuriate the other side.
Okay, I just want to conclude that I think we need government full commitment to resolving this Bawku issue, because I think that as it stands now, it is all about a criminal issue. People are taken up into arms, and possibly some of the activities are not even linked to the Bawku issue. So I think that if government to come swiftly to enforce the laws, the peace will come back to Bawku. Because when you look at it, I think it's not about law enforcement. It is not about distance issue, as my very good brother Dr. Issa also has alluded to. Because the distance issue is a death.
Thank you.
Issue. I think government
Thank you very much.
But some of these cases.
We appreciate you, Abugi Haruna, as with this youth leader with the Kusasis ethnic group, and earlier we spoke as well with the Dr. Issa Moro with the Mamprusis ethnic group, and they both did share some insightful thoughts and ways by which this protracted conflict would be resolved. And you heard Abugi Haruna also appealing to the government to actually find another solution. But just so we end this conclusively, as far as this conversation is concerned, Alex Nate is the National Alternative Dispute Resolution Coordinator, and he joins us now via Zoom. Good evening, Doc.
I'm not Doc. I'm Mr. Alex Nate.
Great, Mr. Alex Nate. I appreciate your time now. I'm sure you've been monitoring the issues and the Bawku issues, and not just that alone. We have other conflicts within the country. But as an expert in alternative dispute resolution, in a protracted feud like that of the infamous Bawku conflict, what are the principal tools to resolve the issue beyond dialogue, community mediation, and militarization?
Thank you very much. I must say that dialogue is inevitable. And so no matter what level a conflict may have gotten to, and no matter the interventions you are seeking to make, dialogue is the ultimate. Conflict is inevitable and associated with human settlement. For that matter, whenever you see issues such as what we discussed at Bawku, all that we need to know and conclude is that indeed these things are bound to happen.
Right. So in a bid to find a lasting solution to the Bawku conflict, now several political interventions have been implemented, but seem to have yielded very little results. What really should be the approach, briefly?
Yes, that is where I was, heading to.
Right.
Once we consider that these are synonymous with human beings, then we will also see ourselves as, duty bound to go to them to find out how we deal with the matter. In fact, in any conflict situation where the condition seeks to threaten national security, the first and foremost thing that we need to do is to have the leadership of the nation ensuring that there is peace and order. That is the initial component. Conflict management is always critical in this situation. But after we have brought law and order and people have well back and there seems to be some kind of peace, that is when we need, in consultation with our intelligence gathering agencies, to know the factions, the parties involved, identify them. When we identify them, then we now have to look at, conflict resolution practitioners. And, when we identify the conflict resolution practitioners, we now also have to identify the parties and find out from them whether indeed it is their quest for peace that is causing this, or what really is their concern.
Right.
That is ascertainable and designed into a process that could be, managed to lead to the conclusion of the issue. When we, relax after we have restored peace, our military approaches, and we now task conflict resolution practitioners to engage the parties fruitfully, because we are aware how long this has taken and the harm it has done. So emotions are high.
Okay.
One thing that can let us deal with this issue is to reduce the situation into a civil interest-based approach environment.
Great.
Where properly identified leaders of the factions could be engaged in a dialogue for a fruitful, identification of the stakes.
Very well then.
And when we identify the stakes, then of course we are about 50% through, because we can now talk and require of the respective factions what their proposals are.
Right.
And these proposals can be harnessed.
Very detailing approach you are sharing, which I believe, is easily and is practicable and applicable in this context. And we are looking forward to extend this conversation in a subsequent broadcast. And Mr. Alex Nartey is the coordinator for the National Alternative Dispute Resolution there, giving us an insight and the best approach to resolving the issues with regard to the conflict in Bawku. And definitely the conversation would be continued in subsequent news broadcasts. But that would do for Insight